with cost dump, the big difference between this and cost current is that this is going to dump out all the changes and it's going to look like a change log. Whereas cost current is only going to show you one value for one SKU, which is going to be the latest or the current, depending on what period you enter. In its simplest form, this formula is going to, I'm using comma by the way, if you're in Europe or if you're in a Spanish-speaking country, then you'll want to use semicolon. Okay, but in its simplest form, I've got my seller nickname that I've entered in Gorilla ROI, and I've entered a period, 2023. Now, I could change this to, like, say, this year, whatever, but you need these two inputs, the required, and it's going to auto-generate everything that you see here. Now, let me change this to, say, let's say 2022. Okay, and you'll see that, for example, this SKU has 4 changes. So from in the Canada market, Canadian currency, Canadian dollars, you'll see that the value changed, or it was entered 4 times. So 1.11, then 1, then back to 1.11, or that's a duplicate that was entered into the system. And so that's something to be careful of, where if you don't want to see duplicates, then delete it from inside your account here. Okay, so if you have duplicates, you'll see these numbers here, for example, and then you'll be able to click it and see whether there's, like, for example, here, I've got duplicates of 2.55, 2.55, and it's going to show both times. So that's what, that's the same thing. So you can see the different, the change activity. Now, if you go to the next one, SKU, if you define a SKU, obviously it's only going to show you the dump. It's going to dump all the activity for the SKUs that you've selected. So let's say just these 3. Okay, so I've selected 3, but one doesn't have a cost associated with it within the period, but one has 2 activity changes. Okay, so that's what that's going to show. Okay, so I'm going to expand this out and just to say 17 so that I can get all the SKUs, comma. And the aggregate filter is what you have to take special note of. If you don't want to see everything, all the different changes that was applied, maybe you just want to see the first one out of that whole period, right? Then you can do that by using this aggregate input. So you can use average, min, max, first, last. So let's say in 2022, I want to know what my first cost was for each of the SKUs, right? Then I'm going to do first, close this formula out, and now it's only going to pull in for each of the SKUs. Rather than generating a full table, it's going to list the exact first cost associated with it. Okay, so if I could have done like first, last, and actually, I mean, I need to do it like that. And I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of first this time, I'm going to do last. Okay, and then now the next one I want to do is, let's say I want to get the average cost that I paid throughout, say, 2022. Okay, I don't know why I'm using 2022, by the way. I think it's just because I have more test data rather than 2023, since it's still early in the year. So I'm going to change this to E2. And by doing something like this, you know, it depends on your use case, but you'll be able to see whether your costs are sort of in line. It's a quick back of the envelope type thing where you don't, a lot of the times you don't have to know like all the 50 different price changes that you had throughout the year, etc. And maybe you just want to know what average you're paying so that you have a good cost basis, and you can make a quick decision as to, okay, my supplier now changed their cost from 1055 and they're saying that they need to raise it up to 165. And based on that big difference, you'll be like, oh no, that doesn't sound right. What is the real cost increase reason? And you can say, we should, I mean, even if if there was inflation and cost increase, then why aren't you charging me, say, something like $1.20? And then it's another way to negotiate and and have the data in front of you to be able to make better decisions and negotiations and things like that. So there's a lot of use cases that you can do, but these aggregate filters, it's going to make it easier to just come up with some values and give you a quick overview of what your costs are. The other inputs, marketplace is self-explanatory. The count is more for if you have like say tens of thousands of SKUs and Google keeps timing out, then maybe you want to just see the say the first 1,000 or the say 5,000 for 2022 or 2023. Okay, so this is just a way to limit the results so that you can actually get something without timing out. Sort is if you are using dump mode. So what I mean by dump mode is when it actually generates the table. This is what I mean by dump mode, where it creates everything like this. Right now, by default, the sorting is going to be ascending based on the SKU. Okay, so by default, it's SKU ascending, but let's say I want to do date ascending. Okay, then it's going to resort and regenerate the table so that rather than the SKU, it's going to show me based on the date. Okay, so that is how you use cost dump, and the aggregate filter input here is the big difference between cost current and cost dump, as well as cost dump showing you the change activity for each of the SKUs.